Hey everybody, welcome to today's live stream. I'm going to take a look at Bitcoin for you with a longer term plan, but also zoom in on the lower time frames and see if we can gauge the direction on Bitcoin. I will mostly take a look also at this chart for the higher time frames. I've been talking about this chart for a while on my Twitter, and it finally reached those zones over here, so I'm definitely going to show you an updated version of that. This video is sponsored by Crypto.com. It's the only single exchange that allows you to trade more than 200 pairs with up to 10x leverage. You can get access to more than 40 quarterly futures and perpetual contracts, and you can purchase new listed coins at up to 50% off. Find all the information right at the description of the video and earn extra $50 USD word of zero using the link below. So what I want to show you in this chart is basically this view over here. I'm using what we call the liquidation screener on TradingView. It's a free indicator. Not sure who programmed it, but it's an indicator that tries to find potential higher time frame liquidation levels. But I personally think this is more of a level to watch. I like to use bands in my trading to see what the extremes are for price action. And I think this is a really nice way to visualize these bands, visualize these extremes. So that's actually what I really like in this chart, is that these bands really show well where Bitcoin is going in the extremes. And of course, you can play the trends in the middles, but when Bitcoin is in a downtrend, you don't want to jump in too early. And bands like these give you levels to watch. So as we saw here in June 21, and actually going into July, and at the end of July, these bands were touched, and eventually that led to a rally. If we go back even further in the chart, we can see that often when Bitcoin went into these extremes, it led to bounces. So if we zoom in further and go back further in the chart, we can see that in 2018, Bitcoin touched these levels and afterwards at least provided some bounce. Over here, we have the infamous 2018 bear market, and when Bitcoin reached these extremes, it often touched those outer bands over here, and which led to bounces in the market. So that's why I have been watching this level too, since I think it's a good place to start looking for positions on spot holdings and spot positioning. So that's what I've been doing. When I saw Bitcoin over here, I thought it would be actually quite close to hitting these levels. So I started scaling in orders and placing orders all the way from this level to this level. I think it was a little bit higher, probably over here, because I don't think it will hit these extremes that much. So this is one indicator I'm watching and really like to use. And of course, that doesn't mean that this is the direct bottom once this has been hit. So for example, what Bitcoin could do is still bleed into this support level here until we see further bounces. So be aware of that. Of course, this is a good sign that there was a reaction at that level. I think Bitcoin bounced quite well yesterday if you look at the lower time frames, which we're definitely going to do in a few moments. But of course, the price action could still be choppy. That's why it's better to have a dollar cost averaging approach at these levels if you're looking for spot holdings, or wait for real trend reversals. Another indicator I often like to use is the RSI. So the RSI over here, you can put it on the chart, has these bands where, according to classical definitions, they indicate they're overbought and oversold. I think those aren't really the best names for that, but I mentioned in the start of this video, I want to look for extremes in the market, and it can find those extremes too. And especially when the RSI is divergent, I think we can see solid levels for pullbacks or bounces. So currently, Bitcoin is coming from a heavily oversold level, and that means that it's below 30 and actually even touched a level around 20, which is quite rare on Bitcoin. If you go back in the chart, you can see over here that there was some kind of divergence. But if you look at all the other examples, it's quite rare for Bitcoin to be in such a extreme level, below 30 or below 20. So over here in March, the infamous March 2020 drop, it hit an extreme. Over here, it also hit an extreme in 2019 in October. So you can see that here, over here, and also over here and over here. But often after such divergences, Bitcoin is going for a bounce. And that's what I want to look for too in this current market, where you want to see that Bitcoin actually is holding that level, not really breaking through and not really breaking down, but is actually just consolidating at these levels. So of course, Bitcoin can do that V-shaped reversal, like down and up, but in general, my guess would be maybe some retests of the low, see if there is really that demand for Bitcoin there. And of course, I'm willing to just hold these positions I scaled into, but I have these orders down here too. So hopefully this can set up for a bounce. And people are, can get really, really bearish on coins during these moments. But I think the thing with trading trends in crypto is that you can follow those trends. And I think following the trend on crypto is a really easy way to make money. But the longer a trend continues, the higher the probability that the trend eventually reverses in some way or finds a correction. And even though this is a daily downtrend, so for example, you could put some moving average on chart, just look at what's in the chart and what the trend is, you can see that the trend is clearly down until we really flip those moving averages. Alternatively, if you have the Burbicator Pro, you could use the Burbicator Pro, and as you can see, indicated by this daily trend over here, you can see that the trend was down actually since over here, or indicated by this high time frame trailer over here, and you could sit that out. So I think for a real trend reversal on a daily, probably Bitcoin has to break 42, but we'll see if that really happens in the next few days or weeks. And that's something to notice. These are levels that are important to watch in the next few days or weeks. It doesn't play out directly. It's something you want to notice actually, because some people see a move on a daily chart, and don't see it playing out, or zoom in on 1 hour 50 minute and don't see that move play out, well, this could jump around for a few days before really breaking a trend. So always take into account some lower time frame volatility if you're planning higher time frame trade. Don't overly babysit your positions. Make a plan, stick to that plan, of course. But let's zoom in. I think currently we might see some early indications of a reversal. We saw yesterday that Bitcoin printed this divergence over here, as indicated by the Bear Indicator Pro, which uses multiple indications for that divergence, so uses multiple indicators here. And I could, for example, also put on the RSI, which is one of these indicators in here, to have a more familiar view for you, those who use an RSI. And you can see that there was divergence too forming, and then there was that rally. So this relief bounce showed that there was where people stopped out here or on the wrong side of the trade, and then price moved against them. And then it actually hit a resistance over here. One resistance was that higher time frame trailer indicated by the Bear Indicator Pro. But right now it's a little bit at a level where I wouldn't really want to pick a trade. Like you can see here that this line over here, this moving average, which is the baseline from Bear Indicator Pro, is going down, and it might provide resistance. It's actually just below price right now, so it might be that price is flipping it. And there's of course this support over here, but it's also, if you draw horizontal here, also a little bit below this support. So it's mostly consolidating here, not really showing that direction. I think for further reversal, I would like to see Bitcoin retake that high time frame trailer, cross it, and basically break 37.4. Find acceptance above that and push through. Like push through really towards this next resistance. And I think that rally would be really nice to see. Having such a rally would probably pull the market with it. And often what you could do in these rallies is, wait for Bitcoin to move and realize that altcoins move often a little bit behind Bitcoin. Of course, be very careful when Bitcoin is at that resistance, is chopping around there a little bit. That's where you also want to take some profits, secure those profits on altcoins. But if Bitcoin really pushes through, I think the easier place could be altcoins. For now, wait for that trend to really flip. If you don't have the Bear Indicator Pro as this easy indication of trend, of course, you could use moving averages. You could use those to see if they get flipped or price finds acceptance above them. And one chart I'm watching on 1 hour is basically over here. Bitcoin is getting above the 100 moving average, which is this yellow line. It's finding acceptance. You can see that the 20 EMA is this light blue line, is also crossing that 100 moving average. So it shows that these reactions here at those moving averages show that there are buyers stepping in and trying to step in at these levels over here. And that's quite interesting. You can ignore this chop over here, but that's what we saw here in this range too, where it can be some lower time frame reversals, maybe more interesting for some day traders, where over here you can see that it doesn't really find acceptance above, but over here you can see that these moving averages start to cross and price finds acceptance above that level. and then at least has a smaller move up. So I think that's what I'm looking for on the lower time frame, the 1 hour chart in this case. But for now, I would consider this. From here the move was really bullish. So far, Bitcoin is holding up, but it is at a resistance. I would like to see some reaction. I would see if this would push through. I would, wait for some kind of reversal and see if there's really a chance that this is reversing that trend. But so far, it's actually looking quite nice. But it's also to give you that indication, like, for example, why I think it's probably that altcoins are lagging here. You can see that Ethereum hit my buy zone too. And you can see actually that it has a slightly different structure than Bitcoin. We can actually directly compare it in the chart. By adding it, and let's use the same percentage scale here, where Bitcoin had that move up from the lows and basically broke those highs. So let's pick a similar view here. Like, Bitcoin broke above this level. Well, Ethereum, if you try to draw some similar level, actually failed to break above it. So that shows a little bit of the relative strength here on Bitcoin, and I think that's interesting to see in this market where money has been flowing mostly out of the market. The markets were really risk off, not really performing. Well, actually, for every holder, they were performing really, really bad and dumping until people were really in despair. And often when money leaves the markets like that in crypto, you can see first Bitcoin gaining some strength and Bitcoin gaining some trust, since it's the king of the market. It's the biggest coin in the market, and you want to see Bitcoin recover first. If it doesn't, it's probably just a local rally on some altcoins, a local rotation, some interesting stuff happening in an altcoin ecosystem, which is fine to play, of course, but be careful, because it is strength in overall weak market, and you don't want to be long that for a long period. So on a lower time frame, we see Bitcoin actually performing well. So it gives a little bit of a sign for strength relative to the market, and actually showing that if this can really push through, the market will get some strength again. Okay, that being said, like, what do you want to see on the charts? So basically what I would like to see were the reversals I mentioned before, and then like the levels I'm watching, and I can just remove the indicators for that, are just here above with support and resistances, as indicated here on the chart. So the first level to watch is, of course, 40.7. The second level to watch, if this really rallies further, is 43.2. And I think those levels would be good profit-taking levels, because we have to remind us the daily trend on Bitcoin really broke. Like, if you look at these moving averages here, if you look at the market structure, Bitcoin really broke market trend. And of course, Bitcoin could chop around and retest the lows and stuff like that. So for now, I think these bounces, you should consider them mostly as a bounce, a relief into very oversold levels, into extremes of the markets, where it just goes up a little bit and maybe goes further down or goes up even further and just starts to chop around. But if there is a real trend reversal, like for example as you've seen here, you'll notice you see important levels being flipped to support, and then you can expose yourself and be trading actually in a more higher probability environment for longs, because the trend flipped and you are trading along the trend. So I think that's the message I want to end this webinar with, is just be careful. Like, the macro environment is bearish. That doesn't mean there can't be bullish rallies or up trends, but make sure you lock in profits quicker if you're playing the long side, and make sure you practice your risk management correctly to not lose more and more during a downtrend, because you're just holding and actually not trading, just hoping. And hope is of course not a good trading strategy. So try to study some trading strategies you trust, understand, and apply them to this trend. Thank you for watching this webinar. Hope you learn a little bit more about my views on Bitcoin and what I'm looking at in the coming days. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us in the Burp Nest. Visit theburpnest.com or visit our Discord. Thank you for watching and have a good day.